So you probably have heard that today's May Day and protests are starting, so I would encourage you after class to leave as soon as you can. Unless you want to be part of it, yes, part of it. Yeah, but otherwise.
Two arms.
Right. It's for you to decide. I can't answer that for you.
Like usually around 7, 8, 9.
So what the administration said is that if right now the campus is closing at 5, but they might make an update. So make sure to have your rave system on, and then if they find that the protests are coming sooner, then they're going to maybe close it. So just everybody should be enrolled in the rave program, and then you can receive notification. It's called rave. I don't know what that stands for. Yeah, are you familiar with it? Party, yeah. But Seattle Central, you should all enroll if you are not. So you can subscribe from here. You can just search for Seattle Colleges Alert. It is called Rave, right? Pretty sure. I don't know. I don't see it here. Maybe they decided to change the name. But anyway, make sure to subscribe for alerts in case you haven't done it already. All right. So, other than this excitement, so today we're going to start on chapter 6, and this whole week we're going to work with chapter 6. Your homework for this week, I think probably you'll find the most challenging homework in the Flutter. And on Wednesday, we're going to spend some time talking about it. Let me give you an introduction about events, do some examples, and then in the context of this knowledge, on Wednesday, we can talk about your homework. But do read it before Wednesday, and then we're going to talk more. All right? Do you agree? Do you remember which one it is? Is the form validation with JavaScript? Do you remember this? Yeah.
That's this week?
Mm-hmm. That's fun. Okay, there you go. It's not hard, it's just fun. Right. So let's talk about events. And so what is an event? And events are going to register if something happened. Not register on the computer, but I'm just using the word. Happens, that's an event. And when the event, what we call fires, then what is going to happen is you need to write code that is going to handle the event. And the way you write the code is going to be with a function. Do you remember functions? We did some functions with or without arguments. So your function is going to be an event handler function. And when you do this, this is when you're actually really going to appreciate how JavaScript makes your pages interactive. So far, we've been making changes programmatically, but now you're going to make the change not in your code, but you're going to trigger it through an event on the UI. Right? For example, the user will click, and then you add a new list item to the list and so on. Right? So it's truly interactive. So there are different types of events. There are UI events, such as this here. You can load, unload, on error, resize, or scroll. So when you scroll, this is considered an event. You have keyboard events, such as when the user presses a key up, down, or press. You have the mouse events, such as click, right? And then you can do a double click and so on. So there are various different types of event. Mouse over, a focus event, when the form field, for example, is highlighted, then it's in focus. And this is an event, so you can handle it as an event. Or when the user, for example, moves the mouse from the text field, then we call this a blur event. And that's also an event, and then you can handle it as well. There are specific events that deal with forms, such as input, change, submit, reset, copy, paste, and select. And so let's take, and also these are not the only type of events. Generally speaking, there are also events that are triggered by the operating system. So it's, again, it's one of these topics that is larger than JavaScript and just the browser. But it's a great opportunity for us to learn how to handle it with JavaScript. So let's learn how events trigger JavaScript code, which will be a function that you're going to write. So as usual, you're going to select the element that should respond to the event. And then, so for example, let's say it's a I don't know, a div. You want your div to respond to an event. Then you have to say which event. As you saw, there is a list of many different events. So maybe on a click event. And so which element or which event, indicate which event, and then you're going to write the code that is going to run when the event happens. So that's the event handler code. And so what we call it binding the event with the element. When you specify I want this div to do something, for example, on a click event. There are two different types in JavaScript to do the same thing, which is to bind an event to an element. We have the HTML event handler attributes. And if you have done any tutorials on W3 schools, there where the event handler is actually an attribute on the page. And then it's going to say on click is equal to, and then the name of the function. And then there are traditional DOM event handlers, which we're going to learn about. And then there are level 2 DOM event handler listeners, which were written to improve some of the functionality that was implemented with the traditional DOM event handlers. Generally, it's discouraged to use the HTML event handler attributes, but you will see them. And if you use it, I will not necessarily subtract points for it if your code works. But the recommendation is to use the traditional DOM event handlers or the level 2. And again, these are 3 different ways to accomplish the same task, right? So we can take a look at, for example, how you can create a program, which we're going to write in a moment, when you have a variable that is blurred, or not a variable, an element that is blurred, and then the blur event is going to trigger a function called check username. All right, so this is the example with the HTML event handler attribute, and it's going to look like this. It's going to be inside the elements such as attributes. It's going to say, for example, here on blur is equal to, and then the name of the function. So what this means is when the user removes the focus from that input field of type text, then you're going to check the username by calling the check username function. And who is going to write the code inside this function? Well, you are. So you'll be writing the code to handle the events. And this is the general process. Again, this syntax works, but it's not recommended. But you should be aware of it because you might encounter it. For example, W3 School continues to use it. So this is the element. The element is the input. The event is blur. And so the event is blur, and you'll see also that when you're using this syntax, it actually says on blur instead of blur. And then this is the event handler function, which is a user-defined function we have to write. And the only time the function will be executed is going to be on blur, when on blur occurs on this particular element on the page. Okay, so this is the traditional DOM event handler syntax, which is different. Again, does the same thing. And what you're doing now is instead of putting it as an attribute inside the element, you're going to call the element dot onBlur is equal to the name of the function that is going to handle your event. This is your element, so this means that somewhere up here you got a hold of this node on the DOM by calling maybe get element by ID or one of these other DOM functions that we learned about last time. And once you have hold of your element, then you call the event as a dot notation. And then you assign the function name to this event. So on blur and then the function name. And then with event listeners, this is the third type of syntax. You're going to have again, you get hold of the node, which is element, and then dot add event listener. And now, instead of saying on blur, the name of the event gets passed in as the first argument. So in this case, blur instead of on blur. And then this is the name of the function. And this is true or false. It's an option argument that specifies essentially what type of event, the event bubble, does it go up or down, and I'll talk more about it later. Again, 3 different ways to do the same thing, all right? And you should be using either the event listener or the traditional DOM, but not this one. So these are the concepts behind what we're going to do, and we're going to do a lot of exercises. Again, element, event, function, and this is the optional boolean. So notice here how the check username doesn't have parentheses. So what this means is that you can't pass arguments to these functions. If you're using an event listener, it doesn't work if your functions have arguments. So therefore, there is a workaround, and here is the workaround. If you need to have a function with parameters, as you often will, the workaround is to call what we call an anonymous function. So a function that doesn't have a name is called an anonymous function. And then you pass your function with the argument as an argument to the anonymous function. So this entire thing from function down to here becomes the second argument. And then this is your Boolean optional argument. So this is how you solve the problem with being able to pass arguments to your functions in the context of event listeners. An anonymous function is going to be without a name, and it's going to run when it's encountered. When the script engine encounters it, it's going to execute it on the spot. So that's what an anonymous function is. Anything to add? Or any questions? All right. And so again, the idea is that when you have parameters, you call the named function with a parameter inside the anonymous function. This all becomes, so you have the curly braces, so this becomes like one statement, and then you add your comma. All right? So I don't know, I haven't really looked recently how many people still use IE 528. Has anyone looked into this?
Does anyone use IE period anymore?
Well,
This weekend I had to renew my parking permit for my neighborhood, and a little window pops up that says, "For the best experience, please use Internet Explorer."
that's what it is. A lot
For
of
the worst experience.
So a lot of, I think, companies who are not necessarily very forward in the technical, they're not technology companies. I think they're actually some that use it. So I'll tell you about it. Hopefully you don't have to be concerned with it, but you might, because Aaron had to work with it. And maybe it was not I8, but who knows. In any case, so what happened in the past was that I528 implemented the event listener differently, just for fun. So what it meant is that when you're checking, you had to check and find out actually if the browser was supporting the add event listener, or else they might have been supporting attach event, which was the IE implementation of add event listener. So it's just adds one more branch of code here, and you should be aware of it if you're working with other browsers. Otherwise, the rest of it is the same. Okay. And this is not so much an issue anymore. Well, yes, I'm not sure how much an issue, but in the past it was a big issue because the Microsoft branch was very differently implemented than Firefox and Safari. So developers literally had to do 2 different sets of implementations. And it has to do with web standards. And I don't know if any of you took Web 110 with me, but I showed this video by, I forgot his name right now, Jeffrey Zeldman. And he talks a lot about the early days of the internet. And it's kind of funny because he made this Batman website. And at the time, not many people were on the internet, but from those who were, 50% of the internet essentially went to his site. So he has this long discussion about, he fought hard with corporations to, to ensure that we have web standards instead of different implementations by different corporations. All right, so that was interesting, and I do recommend actually this video. Maybe I'll post a link if I remember. Okay, but enough of me talking. Let's do a few. Let's do an example or two by hand, and then we'll do more lecture. So go ahead and start your editor of choice. So we are going to need the code for the week, the CSS and the images, just like last time. It says week 6, but I think from Canvas it shows as week 5. Let me see here. So you should go to week 5 module and then grab the week 6 CSS and images, please. Download like last time and set up your project. Let's see here. So you, for you, it's going to show week 5. Let me change it. On Canvas, it should be week 5. Double check.
And then it's javascriptbook.com/code/CO5.
Just 1 second. Let me make sure. This is week 5, right? I have an existential dilemma. Do I want it to be later and time goes by or not? I'm not sure. Ah, statistics will do it. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so week 5, you guys. We're in week 5. Yeah, so everything is good. I didn't mess up this time. So you go to week 5. So it's week 5, but we are on chapter 6. And then from week 5, you will download the images and the CSS like last time, so that we use those, and then we only add the HTML and the JavaScript. Remember, you probably need to be signed into Google to make your download easier to work.
create an index page?
Yes, so once you have your folder, and then you might as well create a JS folder. So your folder structure should look like so. So here. The name of your folder, your CSS has a CSS for chapter 6. Images has all these images. And the JS is empty right now. And after this, we're going to go to the editor, to brackets. So my phone, my screen blacked out. I got a new Samsung Galaxy 7. Beautiful, right?
How is it? Is it a bit bulky or big? Or?
It's heavy. You can touch it if you want, but just don't drop it, okay? I just bought it yesterday. So
it's not as big as I thought it would be.
Nice. Yeah.
I was told that it was kind of a phablet, but
I think there is a bigger one. Maybe the next version is bigger. But yeah. So. All right. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we need to set up the folder to the current folder. Then we're going to have the files here, and then we're going to create a CSS, and not, you can call it index if you want, or you can call it eventhandler.html, event-handler.html, and then another file which will be eventhandler.js. All right, so as before, we're going to write the HTML at least once so that you know what you're working with, and we're going to reuse it in other examples. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. So in the HTML file, doc.type HTML, and in the head, this is events, event handler. And then we need to link our CSS, or the CSS. Okay. And then in the body, we're going to have a div with the ID of page. And then an H2, oops, inside the div, an H2, new account. And then we're going to have a form. Okay, so the form, we're not really going to be submitting the form, we're just using the form to practice events, just so you know. But this might be a good review for you. When you have a form, you have to have the method. Do you remember any of this? All right. So the method would be post to get. Normally we use post with the form, it's more secure, not really related to what we're about to do. And then the action is going to specify the file that processes the form, which is usually a PHP file. Again, we're not doing that right now, so you can just leave it blank or just empty string, it doesn't matter. But inside the form, we're going to have labels and input fields we're going to work with. So label, form, and as you might recall, the label is one of the ways that you can label your fields on your form. And the for attribute is going to connect it with the field. The ID of the field is going to match the for attribute in the label. In this case, is for username. Create a username. And then this label is for an input field of type text. And ID username. And again, the username ID is how you refer to the field in the label. Let's see here, close the input field. And then we're going to have a div, a blank div with the ID of feedback. And this is where, if we have a problem, we're going to print our message to this blank div. And then our form has a username and a password. We're not going to use the password right now, but just add it for completeness. Create a password. And it's the same, so it's an input. Type equals password. Do you remember if you say type equals password, what is the difference?
It will show what you type in.
It will show dots, bullets instead of the text. And finally, we have an input. Type submit with a value of sign in. All right, so after the div, close the form, close the div. So this is the page div. And then script source is equal to JS event handler.js. So let's take a look at our page to make sure that our page looks, oops. The static page looks as it should. Okay, so something like that. And the CSS, of course, is providing the different colors here, but you have a couple fields. And you can see how when I put my cursor in the field, it changes color because now it has focus. And when I remove my mouse cursor out of it, then so now it has focus, and when I click out of the field, this is the blur event. It's blurred. And so I'll give you a moment to make sure your page looks like that, and then we're going to work on the JavaScript.
You go back to the code.
Yes, sorry. Here you go. Excuse me. Yes.
My Simon button isn't showing up. Even though I have the number types of the value Simon.
Let's take a look. See. Did you refresh it to make sure it's Close it, so see this and put it, so put it out, put it above the script tab. See this piece. You see it? Well, one answer is that it doesn't matter because you're not using it, but also you
Close
also
your
close the
feedback
script tab.
here.
Right, that's it. And that it did it for you. Let's try it. It's not cached, actually.
Okay, you know why that was there.
You ready?
No.
Well, what I'll suggest is grab your page content.
So
I'm going to assume it's not here.
the div will have background with the warning,
Search for
but right now with it written like that, it has no height.
You can continue on with us. It's not pointing back to the just see if you can place it.
Yeah, there.
Okay, so it's
You can move on.
yeah, you can go on. Let's see if you can do the exercise without. And if not, we'll come back. But look at there and try to fix it when you get a chance. Yeah. Okay, so are we ready with HTML more or less? Almost? Okay. Let's take a look at your error one more time. Usually when you fix the first one, it might fix the second.
You give that div some height, it'll show up. So it's there. It's just on its empty.
We give a couple labels for the same. So what is you can get to this for the same. So this was in the second one was in the password. You also give a type error. So just work with these errors. Give a if you have HTML errors, I guess I'll say this to everyone. Okay, I've told a couple of you, but I would like to tell all of you. Awesome. If you have HTML errors, or if you suspect you might, then just go to, you should know this from Web 110, W3C validator HTML5, and then drop your code in here, and then run it, and then it will help you catch errors easier, I think, than looking through them, and then fix them. And know that sometimes when you fix the first error, it might resolve subsequent errors. Always go in on the list. All right. Do you guys all know about this tool, the W3 validation tool? I hope so. Yeah, so make sure to use it. There is also one for CSS. Okay. So I guess we're going to move on, and if there is still an issue there, maybe just work with us there, Sharon and Aaron, and then we are going to, you can come back and fix the other issue. Okay, so let's try the JS part of this exercise. All right, so again, what we're going to do is we're going to validate. What we want to validate is the username has to be a certain number of characters, which is a real life scenario. So when the user moves the cursor from the input field, we're going to check and then give an error message if the username is not 6 characters or longer. And so we, in the JavaScript file now, eventhandler.js, and then we're going to write the function, which will be the event handler. Sorry, first give it a name. So function check username, and again, this is the camel case where first letter lowercase, each subsequent words uppercase, capitalized. And if it's a function, you want to give it a verb as part of the name because it does something. So in this case, it checks username. All right. And first, we're going to do it without argument, and then we're going to modify it to use argument. So we're going to have a variable message is equal to document.getElement by ID of feedback. This is our div that is blank right now. And then we're going to say if this dot value dot length less than 5, so what is this? What is the meaning of this dot value dot length? So we're going to be this always refers to the current to where we are, and in this case, it's going to be the input field where we are. So it's going to be the input field, and then we're going to get the value of this field, which will be whatever the user enters, and then it's a list, so we're going to have access to the length property. And by the way, I don't know if we have done this before. Do you see how we can chain multiple methods or properties together? So that's something that you can do. It's called put on the same statement rather than multiple statements. So we chain this dot value dot length. So we're about getting the value and then determining the length. And if the length is less than 5, then we're going to have yield message dot text content is equal to username must be 5 characters or more. Else yield message dot text content is equal to empty string. So close your if, close your function. So if you have one statement, I think we should be able to not have curly braces. You certainly can. If you put them, then it should be fine. But you should be able to, if you have only one liner, you should be able to not use them. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it's in JavaScript too. I just, for sure in other languages, I forget. So let's test this out. It's not so important, but if you want to use them, if it helps you, then you can. Okay, and then after we close the function, so we wrote our function, and now we're going to get the EL username. So the username is equal to the document dot get element by ID of the field with ID of username. And now we're going to add our DOM event handler username dot on blur. So we want this to happen on the blur event is equal to check username as the function. So when the focus is lost, call check username function. And this is where we bind the blur event with the element, and then this is the event handler function. All right, so let's see if this works. And let me show you what you're looking for. So let's say my name, I'm going to say Stani, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, something didn't work. So what is supposed to happen is if you have a name with, it's supposed to be 4. Okay, so this is not working. Let's see why. But what's supposed to happen is when you write the name that's less than 5 characters, then you should get the error message. So let me take a look and see what is the problem. Nothing is the problem. Okay. All right, let's troubleshoot and see here. So save all. Event handler.js. Is it working for anyone?
Yeah, I got a syntax error.
Okay.
It's working for me, but I didn't get to finish the last part, but I don't know how it works.
Okay.
Because like I don't have that on your at the bottom of my JS, but it's still working.
Okay. So just give me a second to troubleshoot mine, and then I'll tell you what you need to change. And it's always interesting to troubleshoot. So, oh, here we go. Okay, great. So now I actually have an error, which is helpful. On line 5. So maybe I was mistaken, and in JavaScript you need to have, no. Okay. Actually, here is what, this has to be closed like that.
You still need the else, right? After that.
Yeah, you need the else. Did I wipe it out? Else. So then I have an extra curly brace. Looks like. I will. All right, but mine's okay. So I will go back. But so this is what we're looking for. If you have so if you have like any, it's less than 5 characters, and so what's going to happen then? You should display in that empty feedback div the error message username must be 5 or more. This is what you wanted to do, and then if your username is 5 or more, then it will not give an error message. This is the only thing that our form does, by the way. Okay, so one more time, this is what you're looking for. Oops. So on blur, it checks, and then here is the code. And yes, I guess confirming that if you only have one line, you don't have to use curly braces unless you want. So we'll give a few minutes to make sure this works for everyone, and then ask any questions you might have. Now my error, as you saw, was I had this curly brace pointing the wrong way and I had an extra one. So if you double check to make sure this curly brace points out, and if you have two down here, you should delete one of them. No, it should not be. Yeah. So you're looking, no, look at the one in the, not the one in the, yeah, it is correct. Yeah. Do you have two feedback? Where were you checking for feedback? Down here. Yeah. Class, there should be ID. Yeah. Good one.
I usually can find them really quickly.
I find them quickly when we have other people's. I don't know why. It's easier. You know.
Someone else at first, I was like, Rabbi, right?
Does anyone have any questions? Is it working for you? Or?
Yeah, same problem as you, straight curly brackets. So.
Okay. Listen, okay. Just 1 second. Okay, please. Because this is the syntax, I don't know why they do that. It's confusing, but because the JavaScript syntax doesn't require interpretive things to contain. And that's why we hate to do the workaround for passing arguments. It just makes you wonder why. But it's not working. Do you have any messages? Oh, this is not. Oh, is it? Also?
Oh.
From the edge. I don't know if you get that with friends.
How does it work? It works.
Do you want to try the question next time? With email, you can put a ticket, but to be honest, I haven't yet resolved. For example, I can't use Chrome from preview, and I put in a ticket and then do it. Okay, so I guess you have to try to manually find the issue. Maybe it's not, maybe it's working. Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, that's weird. I don't get the same error. This used to be like
You have
the deal.
Oh.
So I did that. Because you didn't know by ID, so it doesn't get on ID. That's what I'm saying. Anyone else? Yes. Over here. Okay, can you go back? Try, are you ready instead of submit, just click out, just write 1, 2, 3 or something like that. Then click out. Yes. So then you check your errors. In the console, you have errors. In the console is that's always the first thing you want to do. Good work, so that's good though, because then you can EL is not difficult. So line 5, you have a typo somewhere. Because you get real message from so keep on going to the errors. So if your code works, then maybe take a break now, and then we're going to do another example which you have to break. If it doesn't work, then you can stay, or I can look at it after. Who was Jesse? You
That's all it was.
Yeah, it's just an extra little thing to break the whole thing.
Like 10 out of 10 times when I have an error, it's just one.
For me, it was a stray curly bracket, and
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why
And
I
it
was
was
talking
like in a
with.
place where you just don't, like you
You
said,
don't
it's
think.
easier when you're looking at someone else's. I was like looking through and I was like, that's so weird. Mine's not gonna be
Yeah, it's hard to spot those. I forgot which company I was talking with. That's why I use a lint tool. I showed you guys the JSN tool, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Forgot, was it Google or somewhere else? But essentially, they want the junior developers.
It does.
For the senior developer to help, they will not even look at your code unless you post something to a link to, because they don't want to spend their time
Yeah.
looking for a
No,
doc. You know?
totally.
Yeah, so we should maybe do a practice of that.
I'll use like the JS lint or like a code validator
Yeah.
only after I've read through it like 20 times.
Right.
Because I like to be able to spot
Spot it.
it without
Yeah, it's a good practice, but sometimes for the sake of time, I'll just run it through the tool.
Yeah, no, true.
Yeah.
Was there an error? The same relationship, but it might be that twice. Yeah.
Okay. Post to JS.
Can you jump to your HTML?
Yes.
Because it's a folder, it doesn't need a doc. It's JS. file these ones in your CSS.
Yeah.
Because you look here, you're saying go into my CSS server and you grab a file, well, it's not C06.CSS. That's why the
There's also JS hint, but yeah, I use JS lint, but I guess JS hint may be better. I like JS lint. Okay, I posted it in discussion in case you guys forgot. Yay! Isn't that exciting? So I wanted to show you.
So at the very end of line 13, so if you go to the, you have it on the server. You can also do that. Go to part of it. And how I do it is I'll right click. I'll say 2 pages. And then I'll click on
Couple minutes.
Okay.
I discovered 2 new shows this weekend.
Did you watch Silicon Valley last night?
Which one? No, yeah, it's good. This
I
one?
thought it was funny.
Okay, I watched it.
What's his name? Dinesh, like my favorite character.
Yeah.
I liked it because it's all focused around him, and he's like turns into a total douchebag.
Oh, okay.
Where like he's like he like wears blazer, like and
Because
like
he's the
he
CEO.
wears a blazer and like does his hair all nice,
Uh-huh.
and he like is a total. He's like I'm way better than previous management. So it's really good.
That sounds funny. I watch it tonight with my son. I like to watch it with him because he doesn't watch many things with me, but this one he
Yeah.
likes. So.
Yeah, Mary's always like,
She likes it too. That's
Yeah.
funny.
and so she's like, we gotta watch it. And after watching it, she's like, Aaron, could you teach me how to do JavaScript and coding? And I was like, yeah. She said that like because she's constantly reading it, so like sometimes I want something more cerebral.
It's recording.
Okay. So thanks for coming. But she said that she wants to do something possibly like just like kind of like a chess or a puzzle.
Yeah.
Because she's like, when you're really choosing like a board poster, she's like, it kind of feels good. You decide that because some things that it's creative, but also. It's challenging.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm like, yeah, I think you should get the book. I'm like, yeah. Something like almost probably like she's like sitting in like a homepage for herself. And
Exactly.
I just draw it out how she wants it and we'll just work together.
That's one.
And she's like,
Yeah.
Really good at chess. I don't play her chess because it's boring for me. It's like a checkmate. How is that? Like, where do you go? It's like 4 meters.
That's awesome.
So that being said, I'm like, you can do it programming. You can think down and hopefully. But no, yeah, okay, I'm going to go that way. Like, really? Yeah.
I'm getting JavaScript. Nice to meet you.
I wish I had more quarters because I want to TA for like 130 again.
Thanks so much.
Just because, are they offering those numbers, you know? Those 130?
I think they are. I know I'm not teaching it. It's conflicting.
If the same teacher now, Josh, was in the summer, I'd love to TA for it just for the sake of doing it again. Because right now I'm working with staff.
With him.
Yeah.
Is it good? It sounds like it's good.
Yeah, I think it's a great job. I think sometimes like what's hard is he's using Cloud9, so all of us have the same interface, and that way we can get around downloading things from school. But then you have people who are on their own computers, consider Mac, and they're looking at like someone on Cloud9, someone else. So it's a little thing, okay, do what I'm doing. Someone's like, mine's not working. It's like, are you a Mac? Then say bash this, you know? So you are this, then bash. So he's constantly going around facilitating the difference of machines.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Or do I just use that?
This is what we're doing. It's kind of like,
Get
well, you can name whatever you want. And that's the thing is like, in my head, I'm kind of like, I told him, I said, hey, you might want to think about everybody has a Mac on this side, everybody on this side, half to this side. Because I'll figure out 2 things, we'll solve it, and then 10 minutes later, he gets over here, and finds out the other person on the Mac had the same problem with the patch.
Right.
Then we could very easily been like, oh no, change this, and then later change this.
Right. Oh, that's good. I think I'm pretty sure they'll offer it again and keyboard teach it again. So
Yeah.
if you have time, you can do it. But we're about to start again. So anyway, if you guys are looking for something to watch,
Yeah.
I discovered a new bridge. It's called Paranoid. I actually like it because I won't give it out, but it has to do with my job a little bit. So Paranoid on Netflix. It's very sick.
It's a comedy.
No, it's a drama. It's not a comedy.
Yeah, my favorite is because we used to watch really messed up films, and now we're just like, my life is all messed up films.
This one,
Or she's like, so she doesn't watch it as much.
yeah, so I don't know. The other one is Death in Paradise. This is a detective comedy set in Caribbean. It's so cute. It's also British BBC.
British UC.
Death in Paradise, also
What do you watch it on?
Netflix. I don't have Netflix. Okay,
I'm gonna grab water and we're back.
all right, I'll get started. That's okay.
That's fine.
Let's get set up to get started. All right, so then we're going to do the next example next. And what we're going to do is we're going to write the same functionality, but we're going to learn how to use an event listener. So the syntax will be different. So this means that we can reuse our HTML and we're just going to change the JavaScript. So what you can do is save as, so event handler dot HTML, save as event listener dot HTML. Event listener dot HTML. And then we're going to save a new file, save as eventlistener.js, and save it in the JavaScript folder. Okay, so let's make sure our static page works. It should, but it's good to... Oh, sorry, let me back up for a second. I just wanted to show you here the W3 schools, their events. They're using that syntax with the attribute that is discouraged, but I just wanted to show it to you. And then we're going to get back to our example. So here is their example, which is when you click on a button, then it's going to tell you the time, I guess, right? And you can see the syntax. So the event is set up as an attribute is inside the element, okay? So we're just looking over the HTML attribute, which is not what you want to do, but W3 Schools has those, I think, exclusively, okay?
A major reason why you don't want to do that is because when you have to go back and like redo the page, you have to hunt through all your HTML to change it.
That's a great point.
I don't know. That's something that I think that's why it died, is because like you can just basically make up all your HTML, CS, like and put tags on things, leave it, and then you don't. Then from your JavaScript, you can always just find it by the last node, first node. You can traverse it, go around, and not ever have to touch it. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Not to change it
Exactly.
later.
So that's that. And while you were out, Aaron, we just created our new file. Reuse the HTML as eventlistener.html, and then set up a new JavaScript file, eventlistener.js. And then let's try our static page. So it should be exactly the same. Again, there's just a different syntax. And we need to change in the HTML the file we are pointing to. So this will be JS event listener.js. And then go in the event listener.js. All right. So now we have a function. I guess we could have even left this. So would you like to just copy the function, or would it help you to type it again? Are you comfortable with the event handler functionality?
Type it again.
Type it again?
Better practice.
Yeah, it's a good practice. Sure. Okay, so check username is the name of the function. And then it's going to get a hold of the element where we put the feedback, if any. So it's going to be document.getElementById of feedback. This is our empty div. And then if this.value.length less than 5, your message.text content username must be 5 characters or more. Else, your message.text content is equal to an empty string. Okay, and so this is our function. And again, what's happening here is we get hold of the div with ID of feedback, and then we check if the current field's value has a length less than 5, then we're going to print an error message with text content to the div. Otherwise, we'll just clear it to be blank. And then you're going to exit out of the function, and then have a var el username is equal to document.getElementById of username. And then when it loses focus, call the check user function. Or username is what we want. So check username. So let's make sure I made a little typo here. I would like to name this on line 1 check username. All right, and now the different line, the event listener syntax, el username is equal to, dot add event listener. So we call the add event listener, which takes 3 arguments. It takes the type of event, the function, and then false. After this example, I'll show you about the true and false event bubble in a moment here. So you can see, actually, sorry, we're going to do this example, then we're going to update it to use anonymous function, and then we'll do some more lecture. Okay, so as you can see, the difference here is we're calling add event listener, which is a built-in function, and it takes those 3 arguments. So the same functionality again, just specified differently. And now we should be able to test eventlistener.html. And you'll see the same, which is that now you get the error message if the name is less than 5 characters. So make sure this works for you, and then we're going to change it up one more time so that we can pass a parameter to this function. Sure. And again, add event listener is a built-in function that you can call with those arguments. Any questions? So blur is an event, and this is what it looks like. Right now, the username is in focus. It's white in this case. So if I move my mouse out of it, this triggers a blur event. It's just a type of event.
So that's in the style sheet somewhere that the blur is.
No, that's not related. This just comes as part of the functionality of the browser. So the gray is from the style sheet, but the fact that it changes when you put the focus in it, you can style it, but there is also default behavior, actually, you're correct. You could make it to be a different.
Is there something that tells it to give that little...
Yeah, we should probably look at the CSS here. Good questions. So the exclamation point has nothing to do with what we're doing, but it's an image from the CSS, but I think you're right. Let's look at the CSS, see what's coming from where. Do you see all these background images? So let's see, this is the feedback.
Oh, quick tip, in brackets, you can
Oh yeah,
CSS
that's true too.
properties without switching to your style sheet. just
That's
by-
also true. Let's do that. That's better actually. Event listener. Okay, so we want the feedback right here. Was it quick
Quick
edit?
edit, yeah.
Quick edit. Okay, so thank you. So quick edit will give you the feedback, and you can see here the color of the field is set to white, and then there is a background image which is a warning, which is the little exclamation point. So that's where they come from. All right. Close this. Okay, so is this working for you all? All right. Well, if you're not saying anything, I assume it's working for you. Okay. Take a look, and then we'll do one more. Small change to this account. So, are you getting any error messages in your console? No, that's not the list. That's not so basically you don't have any passwords. If you don't have any console errors, then you need the HTML first. And you go to further in the JavaScript. So for example, I'm seeing that the div is closing after the script, so you need to make this. So how would in my case HTML syntax errors? So that is closed before the script. If you want to save yourself time, you can do validating for HTML, right? If it doesn't work, that's what I do. What are we learning? Is this just visual design tree? Oh, okay. Hybrid assignments. The hybrid portion of the online assignment. Is it available? Okay, so you have a lot of, well, this was the one where you enter a grade and then you, okay, so what you should do is instead of doing a bunch of do whiles, just do if else. If. So change, the first thing you should do. Yeah, you need to have one do while, so you keep on asking them, but don't even worry about this. The first thing you should do is make it so if they enter one time, 65, then you're going to handle it not with do while, but if. So if the grade is, you have your ranges here, exactly right. If the grade is in this range, then that's if. Else if it's under 65, else if, so you have, I guess, several, and then else. So do that. That's not, since you're checking conditions, you don't want to use iteration, you want to use a conditional statement such as if or switch. Yeah. But we can talk more about it later, but definitely that's something you should change. Okay, so then let's do one more change to the code we have here and demonstrate how we pass, if we want it to be more flexible. So instead of always setting our arguments to 5 characters or more, then we can pass different value, which is more, powerful, if you will. Not much more, but it is more powerful. And so we're going to change our JavaScript, everything else remaining the same. So we can use an anonymous function as a workaround to pass an argument to this function. And so go back to line 11. If you want to, you can just make the change to event listener. It's still an event listener, but it's going to be an event listener with parameter if you want to save a different version. Or technically, I'll just use the same file. All right, so just go on line 11. And okay, so go ahead and let's do this. Delete all your arguments inside the event, add event listener. And so add event listener, again, it's a built-in function, and it tells you here it needs a string, an object, or function that takes an event object or a Boolean capture. So again, the first thing we're going to do is pass the event, in this case, blur. Again, keep in mind, blur is just the example we're working with, but it could be any event. It could be click or mouse, down, up, and so on. And then the difference is now we're going to call the anonymous function. And then inside the anonymous function's curly braces, we're going to call the check username function and pass it a value. All right? And then we're going to close. So we have closed the function curly brace. And so this becomes the second argument. And then you do a comma. And then you pass the capture, and I'll talk about it in a moment. Now, I would like you to now tell me, now I want you to actually look at your code with your eyes and tell me, is there any other change we need to make here for this to work? Is there something that is not right about this page of code? The which one? Okay, that's a good place to look at. What about it?
Well, if the anonymous function dictates the by character minimum.
That's exactly right. Why are we putting it there? That's exactly right. That's a great question. So what we need to do is then, first of all, if we're passing an argument here, when we make our function, we need to specify that it takes in an argument. Otherwise, we'll get a syntax error. So the first change we're going to make is we're going to pass an argument in the function definition, which will be the min length. And remember, the function definition, this is like a template, like a placeholder where you say you need to pass one argument. And then when you call the function, you pass the actual value, which can be 5, but it can be a different value as well. And then we're going to be checking for, no longer for 5, now it can be any value and still work. So we're going to check that the length is less than the min length. And now I regret not starting us from scratch because we have more changes to make, but we'll just work through it. It's okay. All right. So then you're checking for the min length, and now when we set the error message, we're going to want to tell what the min length is. So we're going to make the following change. Instead of using text content, we're going to use inner HTML. So go ahead and replace message.innerHTML. And then you can say username must be, and then we're going to dynamically concatenate min length. Oh, those have to match. Here we go. Min length plus characters or more.
You probably want a space before the word characters.
Yeah, that's true. Here we go. So the space there. And also we don't have our line of code that gets the feedback node. So we need to have a var el message. Why don't we have that? Oh, we do have it right here. Never mind. Okay, here it is. Okay, so we have this here.
So this is the IE workaround?
No. The IE workaround doesn't use that event listener. This is a workaround for the fact that if you wanted to dynamically set the number of min length, you can't do it unless you use an anonymous function. So the anonymous function allows you to pass in a function with an argument. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's run this and see if it works now. Let's see here. Okay, and so we're going to need to, since we're using the length, I thought we need to do this, then let's go ahead and set our, get the element by ID where we're getting the nodes outside of the function. So I copied the 2 lines that get the element by ID outside and above the function. Let's see here. See, this solved it. No. Cannot set property of undefined, so I have check username on line 5. Okay. So I must have a typo somewhere. So the message is telling me that it doesn't know what the username is.
Is it because of this?
Yeah, it is because of this, because now it doesn't know what we're referring to. So this will have to be EL username. Yes.
Is that because the variable is declared outside the function?
Yes. So let me try this real quick. Okay, so this works. All right. So this might have been better to be done with a new.
So how come you decided to move it outside the function?
Actually, I'm not sure I did. I thought this might be the problem, but the problem was that it was not. This was the real problem. So maybe if I put it back, it might work. I can try it and see. Let's see. What it has to do is with the context. Does it know what it's looking at? And it didn't know that this when you said this in here, it no longer knew that we were referring to this element, right? So we can play. You can actually. I'll let you, if you're curious, try it out. If you put it back in here, then see if you say this, if it will work. But this is the syntax that does work. So I'll let you finish this. Make sure it works for you. I guess I'll try it real quick. I just don't want to confuse the method, but I'm curious now too. So we said if we put it back in the function, and I say this, that, and that didn't work. Something. Yeah, so it wants it outside, so it can find it. Or maybe it doesn't have to be outside, but here you have to say, oh wait, no, not my bad. There's the wrong one. It wants this one. I'm just trying out a couple things here. Right. So it doesn't like it in here. Or if it's in here, it would work probably if we call it.
If it's in the function, is the other one at the bottom going to be able to read it?
No.
Or it has to be-
So yeah, that's why we have to get it outside the function. You're correct. Because we are using it. Which other one? Actually, I'm not sure what
At
you
the
mean.
bottom, the L username method.
Yeah, that's exactly why. Yeah. So, but it's still not finding it up here as well. So, okay, we can continue playing with it, but basically the solution is to just put it outside of the function. And then instead of calling this, call it by the node name, and so this works. Okay, so this is the working syntax. It gets confusing because of the way the events flow. And again, there are multiple objects, so which is the object we're referring to? So in any case, do you have any other questions here?
Might you say check username is not defined on line 16.
Let's probably put it back in the function. So you're calling line 2? Oh, you check user? Yeah. I thought it was this way. That's fine. Okay, so let's see.
Why is this one more important than the other one?
Why is it more important?
Yeah, why is it important? Seems to make it a little more complicated.
It makes it a little more complicated, but the reason it's more important or more, I guess, better, I would say, is because now you have the flexibility of using different, you're not hard coding a value anymore, so you're generalizing it. So now if we, actually let's do this. So if I wanted,
to hard code
Like-
parameters of, like an argument of, like, must enter a valid email.
that's fine, but right now, so generally if
Now we're
something is,
entering, like, the minimum.
right. But before we had to be stuck with 5, now we can change it. And then, so if I only have AS, whatever, then it's going to tell me it must be 3 characters or more. So anytime when you're replacing a hard-coded value with some kind of value that you can change, such as here, this becomes more powerful because now we have more flexibility, even though it made it more complex, right? So now I can have any value I want, and I just need to change it in one place and it will work. And it's not hard-coded because whatever value I put here, 6, 5, then dynamically it's going to use it to check the value, and then it's going to print it for me for free, so to speak, once I did the work once, right? Notice that when you're calling if you have an error message, it also tells you correctly without you having to do anything now. We're checking for 3 and it says 3 here. So that's the power of it. But it does make it a little more complicated. Because frankly, it makes you wonder why they didn't implement it in the first place that you can pass an argument. I keep on
That's
wondering
a good
that too.
point.
Right. I don't know why it's like that. Okay, so let's see. Where's my... Okay, so HTML elements can be nested inside other elements, as you know. So we can have in fact, we have the input field inside a form, which can be inside a div and so on. And so what happens is that you can also hover or click not only on the element itself, but maybe on the parenting element, right? And so now we have to start thinking which way is the event flowing. And there are 2 ways it can flow. It can what we call bubble or capture. And that's a bit of a more advanced topic, but whether it's bubbling or capturing is that false value. If it's false, it's bubble. If it's true, it's capture. If it's true, it's bubble. If it's false, it's capture. The concept to get through to you with it, we won't be really working with is that if it's a bubble, the direction of the event flow is from more specific to more general. So the anchor tag is a more specific, and then it will bubble up all the way to the document, which is very general. Whereas if you have a capture, the event flows in the other direction. And when you're working with more complex situations, you need to know if your event model is bubbling or capturing. And then you use the Boolean argument to set if the event is bubble or capture. So since I don't remember, we're going to look up, just FYI, let's look up the documentation. And so the Boolean indicating that the events of this type will be dispatched to the listener before being dispatched to any event target beneath in the DOM tree. right. So I believe that if we set this to false is bubble, if it's set to true is capture. So when we're setting it to false, it's bubble. And it's an optional, and it's a more advanced topic, but since it's coming up in the function definition, I'm just pointing it out to you, okay? It might be something that you might talk with in Java too, JavaScript too. Okay, so then the next topic is the event object, and this is going to add more complexity to the topic, but it will allow us to get information about our events, such as the error messages. And so again, the event is an object, and next time what we're going to do is look up the properties and methods that are available to you when you work with event objects. So this will add an additional power to what we can do with events. And for now, we only have 10 minutes left. So let's see. Do we have time for one more? Let's stop here. So I'll give you 10 minutes for Open Lab to finish up and maybe look up anything you need to look up. And then I would like to be out of here at 2:50 sharp because I don't want to be stuck in the demonstrations. And then we'll continue on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, if you wanted to know about the homework, then read and come prepared to ask questions, and we can give you some hints. How to complete. Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Seems like a best plan is to stay underground if at all. And through the trains and.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop here. So.
Okay.
Actually, I get to drive my son. I took him to school and then before he was not playing, I also get to go back one of these days. Are you busing out?
I am gonna be train you down to Pines Grove and so
All right.
What's that? I live on the East Coast. I live in Seattle. That's really bad.
Yes. We are sort of neighbors. I'm in West Seattle myself.